I still remember the way my mother's voice sounded that evening. Soft, almost condescending, like she was explaining something to a stubborn child. "Claire, honey, your brother has more natural leadership ability. You're too detail-oriented." The words rang through the newly renovated lobby of Mountain Pine Lodge, bouncing off the warm, rustic wood beams I had carefully selected. The same lodge I had single-handedly saved from bankruptcy. I could feel my nails digging into my palms as I forced myself to stay calm. "What do you mean Ryan will be CEO?" My voice was steady, but my insides were screaming. Ryan strolled in then, hands shoved into his pockets, wearing that same smug smirk I'd seen since we were kids. "Hey, sis, don't take it personally. Someone's got to handle the day-to-day while I focus on the bigger picture." The bigger picture? I wanted to laugh. For the past 8 months, I had been the one working late into the night, poring over financial reports, negotiating supplier contracts, and rebranding this place from a worn-out, 2-star relic into a boutique destination resort. I had sold my condo in Chicago, cashed out my savings, and left behind a thriving career in hotel management, all to save my family's legacy. And now, I was being sidelined. Just like that. The worst part? I shouldn't have been surprised. Mountain Pine Lodge had been in our family since 1971. Growing up, I spent every summer helping out, running check-ins, setting up breakfast, folding linens. While other kids played outside, I memorized room rates and watched my parents balance the books. But Ryan, he was the golden child, the dreamer, the boy who never had to try too hard because everyone expected so little from him. While I was at college studying hospitality management, Ryan was bouncing between majors, architecture, business, and eventually dropping out altogether to find himself. I built a successful career in Chicago, working my way up to regional director at a luxury hotel chain. Every time I called home to share my achievements, my parents would say the same thing. "That's great, sweetheart. But when are you coming home?" When Dad called me 8 months ago, his voice was shaking. The lodge was weeks away from shutting down. They had maxed out their credit, bookings were at an all-time low, and the staff was quitting in droves. I didn't hesitate. I packed up my life, returned to Colorado, and threw myself into saving the hotel. The first month was pure damage control, patching up leaks, replacing outdated booking software, firing underperforming staff, and training new hires. I poured my own money into renovations, redesigned the entire lobby, and launched an aggressive social media marketing campaign, and it worked. Our occupancy rates soared. The hotel was featured in Travel Leisure. Guests raved about the personalized experience, the upgraded amenities, and the cozy mountain atmosphere. I thought, finally, my parents would see what I had done, that I wasn't just detail-oriented, I was a leader. But in the end, none of it mattered, because Ryan, despite having done nothing, was still the son. And in my parents' eyes, that was enough. The announcement was made during that night's staff meeting. I stood at the front of the room, ready to present our record-breaking quarterly earnings, when my father cleared his throat. "Before Claire starts, we have an exciting update," he said. "I should have known. Ryan will be taking over as CEO," Mom chimed in, smiling like this was some wonderful news. "He'll bring fresh ideas to help move Mountain Pine Lodge into the future." I barely heard the rest of what they said. Sarah, our head housekeeper, shot me a horrified glance. The other employees shifted uncomfortably, exchanging looks, because they knew who had really turned this place around. When the meeting ended, I stormed into my mother's office. "How could you do this?" I demanded. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "You have to understand, Claire. We need Ryan to step up. He's the future of this family business." "And what am I?" Mom just patted my hand and said, "You're the backbone, sweetheart. You make things run. But Ryan, he's got leadership qualities. Vision. Ryan hadn't even been here for the first 6 months of the recovery. He'd shown up at family dinners, made a few empty suggestions, and then left to network in Denver, which I later learned meant partying with his friends and posting motivational quotes on Instagram. And now, they wanted me to clean up after him. Again. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to fight for scraps anymore. If they couldn't see my value, I'd make sure they felt it. That night, I took the long way home. I was still furious, but a deep, unsettling calm had settled over me. Then, as I drove past the abandoned Riverside Lodge, I saw it. The old, faded for sale sign. I pulled into the empty parking lot and stared at the dark, shuttered building. Riverside Lodge used to be Mountain Pine Lodge's biggest competitor. Better location, closer to the ski slopes. A larger spa, more luxurious rooms. It had fallen into disrepair over the years, but I saw what no one else did. Potential. My mind raced. The family hotel had never really been mine, not truly. But this could be. By the time I drove home, I had already made up my mind. I called a realtor first thing in the morning. "I'm interested in purchasing Riverside Lodge," I said. "And I need to move quickly." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of excitement. Let Ryan run Mountain Pine Lodge into the ground. Let my parents deal with the fallout. I wasn't going to save them. I was going to outshine them. I was going to build something better. And when they realized what they had lost, it would be too late. The next morning, I was up before dawn, sipping my coffee, while staring at the for sale listing for Riverside Lodge. The numbers raced through my head. How much it would cost. How long it would take to renovate. How I could make it even better than Mountain Pine Lodge. I was done playing the role of the good daughter, waiting for my parents to recognize my worth. If they wanted Ryan to lead the family business, fine. Let them suffer the consequences. I was going to build my own legacy. By 8 a.m., I was on the phone with a realtor. "I'm serious about buying the Riverside Lodge," I told her. "I need a tour today." Within 2 hours, I was walking through the abandoned property. It was worse than I expected. The carpet smells like mildew. The walls had peeling wallpaper from the early 2000s. The lobby furniture looked like it had been picked out by someone with a personal vendetta against good design. But none of that scared me. I saw potential. The high ceilings, the floor-to-ceiling windows with stunning mountain views, the spacious rooms. This place had the bones of a luxury retreat. It just needed the right hands to bring it back to life. My hands. "I'll make an offer today," I told the realtor. She blinked in surprise. "You don't want to think about it?" "I already have." That afternoon, I called my lawyer and financial advisor. I had enough savings for a down payment. And the rest? The bank would approve me based on my success at Mountain Pine Lodge. I had single-handedly turned a failing hotel into a thriving business. Riverside Lodge would be no different. By the time I locked up my office at Mountain Pine that night, I had signed the paperwork. The next morning, the call came in. "Claire, congratulations. Riverside Lodge is officially yours." I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was happening. I still had to endure a few more weeks under Ryan's so-called leadership. The man had no idea what he was doing. He started making drastic changes without consulting anyone, like cutting the free breakfast buffet to save costs. Never mind that it was one of our biggest selling points. "People don't come here for the food, Claire," he scoffed when I confronted him. "Actually, they do. We've had hundreds of reviews praising our breakfast." He waved a dismissive hand. "We'll offer an a la carte menu instead. More profit, less waste." I tried to warn him, but he wouldn't listen. The complaints started rolling in immediately. Guests were furious. Bookings began to drop. And Ryan? He doubled down, blaming the staff for bad attitudes and firing our most experienced employees. Sarah, our head housekeeper, pulled me aside one day. "Claire, we can't keep doing this. He's ruining everything you built." I gritted my teeth. "I know. I wanted to tell her to hold on just a little longer, that I was working on something bigger, but I wasn't ready to show my hand. Not yet. My parents didn't know about Riverside Lodge. Not yet. But I wasn't stupid. I knew the moment they found out, they'd try to guilt-trip me into stopping. So I kept quiet. Instead, I worked in silence, gathering my team, the best designers, contractors, and suppliers I had worked with in the past. I rebranded the property as The Summit, a name that represented more than just its location. It was my summit, my climb to the top, and when it opened, it would bury Mountain Pine Lodge. The renovations started immediately. While Ryan wasted money on a useless marketing campaign featuring stock images of random mountains, I was redesigning the actual experience. The summit would be everything Mountain Pine Lodge should have been: modern, luxurious, and unforgettable. Instead of cutting costs like Ryan, I invested in the guest experience. A spa featuring locally sourced skincare products, a farm-to-table restaurant led by a renowned chef, a high-tech reservation system for a seamless check-in process, personalized concierge services. Every mistake Ryan made at Mountain Pine Lodge, I did the opposite. And as he sank, I soared. It took 3 months before my parents finally found out. I was in my office at Mountain Pine Lodge, finishing payroll, when Mom burst through the door, her face red with anger. "You bought Riverside Lodge?" I leaned back in my chair, perfectly calm. "I did. You're competing with your own family?" I met her gaze. "No, Mom. I'm competing with a bad business decision. You put the wrong person in charge and now you're paying for it." Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no argument. Dad walked in behind her, looking weary. "Claire, we're already struggling. If you do this, it could destroy Mountain Pine Lodge." I raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before handing it to Ryan." Mom sighed, rubbing her temples. "This is petty, Claire. You're doing this just to spite us." "No," I said, standing up and grabbing my coat. "I'm doing this because I'm tired of waiting for you to see my worth." Then I walked out, leaving them speechless. The next few months were chaotic. Mountain Pine Lodge's bookings dropped as negative reviews piled up. Meanwhile, the summit's pre-launch buzz was exploding. Ryan tried everything to sabotage me. First, he badmouthed me around town, telling vendors I was trying to destroy our family. That backfired when most of them already knew he was incompetent. Then, he tried poaching my contractors, offering more money to get them to quit. Too bad I had already locked them into airtight contracts. Finally, he made the worst move of all. He started slashing prices so aggressively that Mountain Pine Lodge was barely breaking even. Mom and Dad begged me to reconsider. "Please, Claire, if you just come back." "No," I said firmly. "You made your choice." And I meant it. I had spent my entire life waiting for them to pick me. Not anymore. The summit's grand opening was in 2 weeks, and I was about to show them exactly what they had lost. The morning of the summit's grand opening, I stood in the middle of the newly designed lobby, breathing in the fresh scent of polished wood and new leather furniture. It was finally happening. Every sleepless night, every battle fought in silence, every moment I had to bite my tongue while Ryan ran Mountain Pine Lodge into the ground. It had all led to this. The summit wasn't just a hotel, it was a statement. A declaration that I was done being overlooked, dismissed, and undervalued. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, who had officially joined my team a month ago. "The ribbon-cutting ceremony is packed. People are already lining up. Mountain Pine has maybe 5 cars in the lot." I smirked. It had taken less than a year for the tables to turn. But as I prepared for the biggest day of my career, my parents had one last trick up their sleeve. At 10 a.m., just an hour before the ribbon cutting, my lawyer called. "Claire, we have a problem." I frowned. "What kind of problem?" "Your parents and Ryan just filed a lawsuit against you." I nearly dropped my coffee. "What? For what?" "They're claiming that you stole proprietary business information from Mountain Pine Lodge and used it to develop the summit. They're seeking damages and," he paused, "they're trying to get an injunction to shut down your opening today." My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a last-minute tantrum. This was war. Ryan's and my parents must have thought this would be enough to stop me, that I'd panic, that I'd cave. They didn't realize I had seen this coming months ago. "Forward me the paperwork," I told my lawyer. "I'll handle it." By the time I stepped outside for the ribbon cutting, I had already made my next move. My lawyer filed a counterclaim, accusing Ryan of financial mismanagement and defamation. And then, I made sure the media got every detail. Local news outlets were already covering the grand opening. What better way to expose my family's desperation? As I cut the ribbon in front of a cheering crowd, I smiled for the cameras, fully aware that in a few hours, my parents would see their own names in the headlines. Family feud in the Rockies, betrayed daughter fights for her own hotel. Let the world see what they have done. By the time the lawsuit hit the press, Mountain Pine Lodge was already crumbling. Ryan's price-slashing strategy had backfired. He had tried to compete with the summit by undercutting his own rates, offering rooms for half price, cutting staff wages, and even advertising free ski passes just to attract guests. It wasn't sustainable. Within weeks, Mountain Pine Lodge was hemorrhaging money. Vendors weren't getting paid. Staff started quitting, and then came the worst blow of all, the health inspection. A guest's complaint led to a surprise visit from the health department. Multiple violations, food storage issues, housekeeping shortages, a broken water heater that had gone unfixed for weeks. The state temporarily shut them down, and Ryan nowhere to be found. When I got the call from my mother, I expected an apology. Instead, I got something close to a command. "Claire, please, we need you to come back and fix this." I almost laughed. "You want me to clean up Ryan's mess after you tried to sue me?" "We didn't think it would go this far," she said weakly. You didn't think I'd fight back? Silence. Then she tried again. Claire, it's still the family business. Your grandfather built it? No, Mom. I rebuilt it. And you handed it to Ryan. More silence. Please, Claire. For the first time in my life, I realized something. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need to hear them say I was right, because my success had already proven it. No, Mom, I said firmly. You wanted Ryan to lead Mountain Pine Lodge. Now you get to live with that choice. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. I sat in my office, staring at the financial reports for Mountain Pine Lodge. Declining occupancy rates. Negative reviews are piling up. Staff resignations are coming in waves. Ryan had officially ruined everything I built. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I just felt tired. Over the past 4 months, Ryan had slashed costs in all the wrong places. He cut breakfast services, angering guests. He reduced cleaning staff, leading to complaints about dirty rooms. He ignored maintenance issues, causing plumbing failures and electrical problems. And worst of all, he blew thousands on flashy marketing campaigns that promised luxury experiences, but delivered budget motel reality. And the guests noticed. Online reviews tore the hotel apart. This place has gone downhill. Not worth the money anymore. Used to be charming. Now it's just sad. But Ryan refused to listen. You're overreacting, Claire. He smirked when I confronted him. This is just a rough patch. Every business has them. A rough patch? The hotel was frowning, and he was acting like it was a bad week at the gym. Then came the final straw. I walked into my office one morning and found an email from the bank. Ryan had taken out a massive loan, using the hotel as collateral, without telling me, without even telling our parents. I felt my stomach drop as I read the details. A 6-figure loan taken out in Mountain Pine's name was approved with one signature, Ryan's. I stormed into his office, slamming the papers on his desk. What is this? I demanded. Ryan barely looked up from his phone. Relax, sis. It's an investment. An investment! My voice shook with rage. You took out a loan against the hotel without telling anyone? He finally looked at me, rolling his eyes. I'm CEO, Claire. I don't need to run every little decision by you. Little decision? He had gambled away our family's business, and he had the audacity to call it a little decision? I could barely breathe. You are going to destroy this place, I whispered. He just smirked. Only if you keep getting in my way. That was it. That was the moment I knew. I was done trying to save them. That evening, I met with my lawyer. We need to prepare for the worst, I told her. Ryan is driving Mountain Pine into the ground, and when it collapses, I don't want to be anywhere near the wreckage. She nodded. You've done everything you could. It's time to protect yourself. Over the next few weeks, I cut all remaining financial ties to the business. I moved my investments. I updated my contracts. I disconnected the summit from any lingering Mountain Pine associations. And then I did something that shocked the entire town. I withdrew my offer to buy Mountain Pine Lodge. My parents had assumed I would save it. They thought I would step in at the last moment, fix Ryan's mistakes, and put everything back together. Not this time. This time, I let it fall. Without my financial backing, Mountain Pine's bills went unpaid. Their vendors cut them off. Their employees quit in droves. The once thriving family hotel became a sinking ship, and Ryan was the captain going down with. Even my parents, who had defended for months, started to see that. One night, my mother showed up at my house, exhausted, her perfectly styled hair slightly out of place, a rare crack. Claire, you have to help. The bank is threatening. He doesn't know what to. I sighed. Mom, you flinched, but I didn't sugar. I told you this would happen. I told you he wasn't ready, and you still chose him over me. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't stop. Now you want me to fix it? After he ran it into the ground. After he ignored every warning I gave him? She reached out, grabbing my hand. It's the family business, Claire, please. I pulled my hand away. Not anymore, Mom. Her face crumpled. So that's it? You're just going to let it fail? I held her gaze. No, Mom. I'm going to let him fail. She left without another word. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. The next month was a disaster for my parents. They tried everything to stop the collapse. They offered discounts, hoping to lure in guests. They reached out to investors, desperate for a last-minute miracle, but it was too late. The foreclosure notice went up in the hotel lobby 4 weeks later. Mountain Pine Lodge was officially dead. The building sat empty and abandoned, a shell of what it used to be. And Ryan? he disappeared. Rumors spread that he had fled to Las Vegas, burning through what little money he had left. But honestly, I didn't care, because he was no longer my problem. 1 year after I walked away from Mountain Pine, I was standing in the lobby of the summit, shaking hands with a major investor. A national hospitality group wanted to expand my brand. They wanted to partner with me. "Claire, this could be the start of something huge," my lawyer said. I looked around at what I had built. The sleek interiors, the 5-star service, the team of loyal employees, and no one could take it away from me. So I smiled and said, "I've never been more ready." A few months later, my phone rang. My mother, "Claire, we lost the house." I said nothing. "We had to sell everything. We don't know what to do." Her voice was small. I closed my eyes. They had put everything in Ryan's hands, and he had burned it all down. "Do you think you could help?" she asked, voice shaking. Years ago, I would have dropped everything to save them, but I wasn't that person anymore. "Mom," I said, my voice calm, "I can't." A quiet sob came through the phone. "We should have trusted you. It should have mattered, but it didn't. Take care of yourself, Mom." And I hung up. That night, as I walked through the summit, I knew one thing for sure. I had won. I hung up the phone and felt nothing. Not sadness, not anger, just peace. For the first time in my life, my parents' approval didn't matter. I didn't need them to tell me I was right. I didn't need their apology to heal, because I had already won. It was only a matter of time before Mountain Pine Lodge collapsed under its own weight. Ryan's reckless decisions had sent the business into freefall, and with vendors cutting ties, employees quitting, and guest bookings plummeting, it was doomed. The foreclosure notice went up 6 weeks later. A once proud building, the place I had poured my heart and soul into, was now just another failed business. A property no one wanted. My parents tried everything to stop it. They begged old friends for loans. They pleaded with investors. They even called family members they hadn't spoken to in years. But no one wanted to bail out a sinking ship, especially one that had been sabotaged from the inside. And Ryan? Gone. No calls, no emails, no explanations, just vanished. Rumors said he had fled to Las Vegas, living off what little remained of the money he had siphoned from the business. But honestly, I didn't care. He was no longer my problem. The day the bank auctioned off Mountain Pine Lodge, I wasn't even in town. I was standing in the grand lobby of the summit, shaking hands with a major investor. A national hospitality group had taken notice of my work. They wanted to partner with me, expand, turn the summit into a world-class brand. "Claire, this could be the start of something," my lawyer told me. "Are you ready?" I looked around at what I had built with my own, the luxury suites, the 5-star service, the team that believed in me. I had risked everything, and I had come out stronger than ever. So I smiled and said, "I've never been more ready." A few months later, I got a call I wasn't expecting. My mother, "Claire, we lost the house." Her voice was small. "We had to sell everything. We don't know what to do." I closed my eyes. My parents had put everything in Ryan's hands, and he had burned it all down. No business, no home, no savings, nothing. "Do you think you could help?" she asked, voice shaking. I sat there, staring at the city skyline outside my office window. Years ago, I would have dropped everything to fix it. I would have rushed to save them to prove once again that I was the responsible one. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had already saved them once, and they threw it away. "Mom," I said, my voice calm, "I can't." A quiet sob came through the phone. "We should have trusted you," she whispered. "It should have mattered, but it didn't." "Take care of yourself, Mom," I said. And then I hung up. The summit continued to thrive. The investor deal went through, and within the next year, I had opened 2 more locations, one in Aspen and another in Lake Tahoe. We were nationally recognized. My brand was everywhere, being hailed as the new standard in luxury hospitality, and I was finally free. One night, I was walking through the lobby of the summit when something caught my eye. A young woman, fresh out of college, standing near the front desk, clutching her resume. Her hands trembled slightly, deep breath, preparing for her. I saw my younger self, so I walked over, extended my hand, and said, "Welcome to the summit." And as I looked around at what I had built, I knew one thing: I had won. The night the summit won its first national hospitality, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse suite, looking for the city lights. The air was filled with the hum of life below. This was my life, not a prize, not a backup plan. A victory. Mountain Pine Lodge was nothing more than a memory. The bank had auctioned it off to a real estate developer, and within months, it was being torn down to make way for luxury condominiums. The place I had once bled for was gone, and I felt nothing, not sadness, not nostalgia, because I had already moved forward. Ryan never returned. The last I heard, he was bouncing between jobs, burning bridges, and blaming everyone but himself. My parents? They had downsized to a small apartment outside of Denver, living on what little retirement savings they had left. They reached out from time to time, not for money, just for acknowledgement. "We're proud of you, Claire," my mother had said in one of her last calls. It had taken ruining their lives for them to see what had been right in front of them all along, but by then, their approval didn't matter anymore. I had stopped waiting for it. I had stopped needing it. With Mountain Pine Lodge gone, my business thrived. The summit became a name synonymous with luxury, and our newest location in Lake Tahoe was already breaking records. Investors lined up, eager to be part of something revolutionary, and I had never been happier. One evening, my assistant, Jamie, rushed into my office with a smile. "Claire, we got it," she said breathlessly. "Got what?" "The feature." I blinked, and then I saw it. The cover of Forbes Travel. A full picture titled, "The Woman Defined Luxury, Claire Ann's Rise to Power." I traced my fingers over my own the glossy magazine. 10 years ago, I had been nothing forgotten daughter, the one who was too small. Now, I was to be reckoned finally. One after I walked Summit's grand lobbies, caught my of Mount stood by my side. I heard about the "you did good" fights. The moments when I thought I was fighting a losing battle, but I hadn't lost. I had won, and I had built something unstoppable. It was almost poetic when I ran into my parents one last time. I was in Denver for a business conference when I spotted them in a small cafe near my hotel. They looked older, weaker. Life had been hard on them. They saw me, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. Then my father, who had always been the quiet one, stood up and walked over. "Claire," he said softly. My mother followed, wringing her hands. "You look good," she murmured. I nodded. "So do you." A lie, but one that I was willing to tell, because in that moment, I realized something. I had already forgiven them, not because they deserved it, but because I deserve peace. They would never truly understand what they had done. They would never admit how wrong they had been, and that was okay, because I wasn't that girl anymore. The one begging for scraps of validation. I was Claire Anderson, and I had built my own empire. "Take care of yourselves," I said softly, and then I walked away. 5 years after I first walked away from Mountain Pine Lodge, I stood on the stage of an international business summit, addressing thousands of entrepreneurs. "Success isn't just about what you build," I told them. "It's about knowing when to walk away, when to stop waiting for approval, when to stop dimming your own light just to make others comfortable." The applause was deafening. I smiled because this was my legacy, not a crumbling family business, not a name tied to a dying hotel. This, the summit, the empire I had built with my own hands. As I left the stage, Jamie handed me my phone with, "You're trendy." I laughed, because of course I was. I had done what they all thought was impossible. I had become unbreakable, and as I stepped into the night, my heels clung against the pavement, I knew this was only